Okay, when you think of a legendary pirate, I'm willing to bet it's not this person. But, maybe it should be. Today, we're going to talk about the most successful pirate who ever lived, and I can pretty much guarantee her story is going to completely dismantle every stereotype you have.
So let's just get this out of the way right now. Forget Blackbeard, forget Calico Jack. Seriously. The legends of history's most famous male pirates, they just absolutely pale in comparison to the woman who really dominated the seas.
Take a look at that number, 80,000. That's the size of the pirate army we're talking about here. And what's even more mind-blowing? Their leader wasn't some grizzled old sea captain. She was a former prostitute from a floating brothel.
So, who was she? Her name was Cheng I Sao, and her story is honestly one of the most remarkable and criminally undertold tales in all of maritime history. We're talking a journey from the absolute bottom rungs of society to undisputed, fearsome power.
Her rise to power was just meteoric. In 1801, she marries a powerful pirate chieftain, but when he dies, she doesn't just, fade away. No way. She brilliantly outmaneuvers all her rivals, seizes sole command, and starts turning that fleet into a full-blown pirate empire.
But how on earth do you command an army of 80,000 cutthroats, thieves, and killers? Well, it wasn't just through fear or charisma. It was through something way more effective: brilliant, ruthless administration.
She created something called the Red Flag Fleet's Code. And look, this wasn't some loose set of pirate guidelines like in the movies. Cheng I Sao established a rigid, sophisticated legal system, and it was the absolute bedrock of her power. It's what took a chaotic mob and turned them into a disciplined fighting force.
Her code was brutally simple. It was non-negotiable. You disobey a direct order, you're instantly beheaded. No trial. But this second rule, this one is really telling. Raping a female captive also resulted in an instant beheading. In a world that was defined by lawlessness, she imposed her own iron-fisted and, in some ways, pretty progressive order.
So, with this incredibly disciplined army at her back, Cheng I Sao's fleet became an unstoppable juggernaut. We're not talking about a few rogue ships here. This was a naval power so huge and so effective that the world's established empires were forced to take notice, and then try to take her on.
First, to try and fail, the Chinese Navy. The Qing dynasty sent fleet after fleet to destroy her, and time after time, they were just utterly crushed. Their ships were then absorbed into her ever-growing armada.
But she didn't stop there. She even took on the undisputed masters of the sea at the time, the British Royal Navy. Can you just imagine the shock when their powerful warships were soundly beaten by a pirate fleet commanded by a former prostitute? And hey, just to complete the set, she defeated the Portuguese Navy as well. So let's get this straight. She successfully battled and beat the navies of 3 major world powers. On the South China Sea, she was, for all intents and purposes, invincible.
This all raised a terrifying question for the empires of the world. What do you do when you're facing an enemy you simply cannot beat? They couldn't sink her, they couldn't outfight her. So the Chinese government decided to just stop trying.
And this brings us to the absolute masterstroke of her entire career. The government didn't offer another battle. They offered a treaty. They basically admitted defeat and acknowledged that Cheng I Sao wasn't just a criminal. She was the head of a rival state they had to negotiate with.
And just look at the terms of the deal she negotiated in 1810. It is absolutely stunning. First, a full pardon for herself and every single one of her men. Second, and this is incredible, she was allowed to keep all of her looted wealth. And third, the government granted her a noble title. She went from pirate to aristocrat literally overnight.
Let's just put this into perspective for a second. The typical pirate story ends with a noose or a cannonball, right? They lose everything. But Cheng I Sao? She got a full pardon, kept all her money, and retired a noble. She didn't just survive the game, she won it.
So what does the most successful pirate in history do in retirement? She doesn't just fade away. She takes her fortune and that sharp mind for business and opens one of the most successful gambling houses in the entire region, becoming a wealthy and, get this, respected business owner.
And this final number is maybe the most shocking part of her whole story. She died peacefully, surrounded by family, at the ripe old age of 69. In a world where the life expectancy of a pirate was measured in months, not years, she lived a long, full life and died in her own bed.
And that's the ultimate takeaway here.
Blackbeard was killed. Calico Jack was hanged. But Cheng I Sao, she is the only pirate in history who truly won, beating the system from the inside out and just walking away with everything.
Which leaves us with this one final, really important question. The most successful, most powerful, and arguably the most brilliant pirate in all of human history was a woman who started with nothing and beat the world's greatest empires. So, why have so few of us ever even heard her name?